Curtain walls are made up of panels, grids, and mullions. In this exercise file, you can see there are 3 standalone curtain walls. This first one here is just a curtain wall panel. And the second one is made up of curtain wall panels and grids. And the third one here has panels, grids, and mullions. When you select a curtain wall, you can click Edit Type to open the Type Properties dialog and see all of the type parameters that define the curtain wall type. At the top here, you can see the curtain panel, and then there's an area for the vertical grids and an area for the horizontal grids, as well as the vertical and horizontal mullions. And so that's how all of those various components can be defined. To create a new curtain wall type, you can duplicate an existing one. So with the Storefront type selected, we'll click Duplicate. And then for the name, we'll call it Interior Curtain Wall, and then click OK. And now we can adjust these type parameters to define our new curtain wall type. For the function, we can expand that drop-down and select any of the available options. Since this is an interior curtain wall, I'll select Interior. And then for curtain walls, you can choose Automatically Embed, and then that curtain wall will automatically embed itself into a basic wall or a stacked wall when it's created inside that wall. Continuing on, you can define the curtain panel, and when you click in that field and expand the drop-down, you can see the system panels that are available in the project, as well as the empty system panel. But you'll also notice the other wall types are available. So all of the basic wall types, as well as the curtain wall types and any stacked wall types that you have. So you can get very complex in your curtain wall definitions. For this example, we'll leave it set to the glazed system panel. And then the join condition can be specified, and there are a few options there, such as vertical grid continuous, horizontal grid continuous, or the border and vertical grid, or border and horizontal grid. Continuing on, you can control the grid layout. And once again, you can do so for the vertical grids and the horizontal grids. You can specify the layout method, which can be none if you don't want any grids in the vertical or horizontal direction, or it can be fixed distance, fixed number, or maximum or minimum spacing. So for the vertical grid, we'll select fixed distance, and then you can set the spacing. So if I change this to 3 feet, then our grids will be a fixed distance, and that distance will be 3 feet. For the horizontal grids, I will select fixed number, and when I do, you can see that the spacing is unavailable. And then what happens is that you can actually control the number in the instance properties for that wall, which we'll look at in just a second. Continuing on, you can specify the vertical and horizontal mullions, and you can do so by specifying the interior type, or you can select one of the options here based on the mullion families that have been created in the project, or you can simply select none. So you can select an interior type, a border 1 type, and a border 2 type, and that's for both the vertical and horizontal mullions. And then just to wrap up, there are identity data and IFC parameters for curtain walls. I'm going to click OK, and when I do, the curtain wall that I had selected updates because we created the new type, and you can see it's now selected in the type selector. And we'll take a look at a few of the options here in terms of the instance parameters. For the vertical grid, you can see the number is unavailable, and that's because the vertical grids are set to a fixed distance that we specified in the type properties. but we can adjust the justification. And that can be beginning, end, or center. That way you can get those grids started in the precise location that you want. And then you can also add an angle if you wanted to get more complex there with your vertical or horizontal grids. For the horizontal grid, the number parameter is available because we set it to fixed number in our type properties. So if I change that to 4, you can now see that there are 4 horizontal grids. And once again, we can adjust the justification, add an angle or an offset as needed so that those grids are placed exactly how you need them to. Alright, so that is how you can control the grids and mullions for a curtain wall type, but then you can also add them manually. On the Architecture tab in the Build panel, you can see there is a curtain grid tool as well as a mullion tool. I'll click Curtain Grid, and then you can see 3 placement options on the Contextual tab here. With all segments selected, I can simply click to place a grid line. I'll place a couple vertical and a couple horizontal. If I select one segment, then I can just create it in one segment in between existing grids. I'll place another one there. And then all except picked. What happens there is you can select a location, and then that line will turn red, and you can simply click in one of the segments and it'll become dashed. And then when you click Modify, then the grids will be placed in all of the segments except the one that you had picked. You can always select a grid afterwards and then adjust the distance using those temporary dimensions as needed. Similarly, on the Architecture tab in the Build panel, you can click Mullion and then use one of the placement options to place mullions on the grid line or on a grid line segment or all grid lines. So as you can see, lots of options there to help you get those grids and mullions placed exactly like you want. Last thing we'll look at is corner mullions. And when mullions are placed on a curtain wall, they are pinned. So what we want to do is make sure we have Select Pinned Elements enabled. And then when we hover over a mullion, you may be able to select it or you may have to press Tab. And once you select it, you can right-click and use the Select Mullions on Grid Line option, and then unpin all of them, and then delete them. And then now we have those other mullions there, so I'm going to press Tab, and then click to select it, right-click, and I'll use the Select Mullions on Grid Line option, and I will unpin those. And when I do, the type selector becomes available, and now I can choose one of the corner mullion types. That way we can adjust those corner mullions and get them set exactly like we want them to be.